All right, welcome back. So we are getting to some pretty advanced sprints. What we're going to do this time is enemies that shoot back. So the game is already getting progressively harder, and we're going to add a new level where the enemies shoot at you. Let's take a look at what this is going to be. So this is enemies shooting at me. Now it does take a while before they actually start. Oops, that's not the right one. I want to go to this one. It will take a while before they actually start shooting at you. So I could play for a while, and then eventually they would start shooting at me. But I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go into the code. And there's two things that make you a shooter. There's two things that make you shoot. One is you have to be a shooter. And so you can see that right now, we're picking a random number 1 to 5, and if that is less than round number, then you're a shooter. We'll get into this math eventually. But what I want to do is I want to always be a shooter, right? And so I'll just pick a random number between 1 and, actually I'll pick a number between 0 and 0. And so it's going to always be less than the round number. So everybody is a shooter. And so if I were to run it right now, everybody is now a shooter. You can see that when they pop out, they switch colors. That shows that they're a shooter. And then there's a little red.
Fired.
That one's a little red bullet at it. And so if they're shooters, they will shoot at you. Now they're not firing at me enough, so I'm going to increase how often they fire at me. You can see that every time in this code, every time they take a step, there's a 1 in 500 chance that they'll fire. Now, I'm going to explain that when we get there, but right now I'm just going to make it like a really low number. Actually, if we just, I'll tell you what, we'll just do what the other one was. They'll fire every single step. Get ready
Every
to,
step they're going to fire.
Going to get a barrage of bullets. So you can see that they're firing more now. The game is suddenly
That
quite
is impressive that you've lasted as long as you have.
Oh, yes. There we go. They got me.
The dinosaurs will got you?
The dinosaurs what got me. It's because I was getting cocky. All right. And so we're definitely going to have to do some discussions about probability, about like, why do we have a 1 in 500 chance that they shoot at me? And I mean, maybe they didn't shoot enough there. And why do we have a chance that they are a shooter that's like related to the round number? So the idea is that you'll get more shooters later in the game. So that's what we're going for. Before we get into the probability stuff, we've got to have another sprite here for an enemy bullet. So let's dive in. So whenever you're tackling a problem like this, you know that there's a lot you have to do. You have to create an enemy bullet. You have to decide who shoots. You have to decide how often they shoot. Let's start with just the enemy bullet stuff. So here's what I want to do. Right now I've got a bullet, and bullets start at the hero and they point towards the mouse, and then they fire, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this sprite as a starting point, right? So I'm going to right click on the bullet here and I'm going to say duplicate. And you can see it made a sprite called bullet 2. I'm going to switch this to be called enemy bullet. And distinguish it between like good and evil, I'm going to make it red. So I'm going to highlight it, and I'm just going to switch it to be a red thing, right? All right, so let's go think about the code some and see what's different from being a bullet. So first off, there's no bullet limit bullet counter. So I'm going to just get rid of these two things, just drop them in the trash. I still do want to hide the original. So if I were to hit play right now, the original would hide wherever it was at. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to change the bullet counter. Nope, don't want that. That goes in the trash. I'm going to go to the hero. That's not going to work. Where I want to go to is I want to go to the enemy that fired this bullet. The problem is that there could be multiple enemies on the screen at a time. And if I were to select enemy here, it would actually go to that hidden original hero enemy anyway. So it wouldn't even work. So we're going to have to start off by figuring out how to do a go-to. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick a go-to in here. And what I want to know is I want to know the X and Y of the firing enemy. Sounds like variables. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a firing enemy X. So this is a variable that's going to be for all sprites. There's going to just be one of them. So at the moment somebody fires, presumably there's just one enemy, he's going to set this, and then the bullet's going to read it, like almost immediately right away. So I'm going to make that variable. I'm going to make another variable for firing enemy Y. And then should I do the firing enemy speed, Bob, or save that until we need it? We'll save it until we need it.
Let's see the problem first and then fix it.
Sounds good. All right, so firing enemy X, firing enemy Y. I'm going to leave them on the screen for just a little bit. I'm going to use them when I start as a clone. The thing I have not done yet is I haven't set them, but I'm just going to keep that in my brain. That is like pencil and paper, write that down as something I need to do. So when I start as a clone, I'm going to go to those X and Y, so not to the hero. I'm going to actually point towards the hero because I'm now an enemy, right? So I think that code is ready to go up. Bullet offset angle, that's not a thing, right? So that's just something that I got whenever I duplicated the bullet, so get rid of that. Show is a good thing. Move at 5, we'll just leave that for now. If I'm touching the edge, then go away. I like that going away, but this changing bullet counter, I don't want that. So I'm going to have to break those apart just so I can get rid of that and put that back. All right, so when I receive bullet hit enemy, well, what do I do if a bullet hits an enemy? Really nothing, right? So if some bullet out there that's like a Ladybug bullet hits an enemy, I don't care, right? So I just don't care. So I'm actually just going to trash that whole thing. If an enemy hits the hero, then I want to stop other scripts in the sprite. I like that. That's good. All right, so my bullets have a lot of good things going now. I went through there just to purge any code that didn't belong, right? Because I duplicated. Now I've got to think about what code I want to add. So the code I want to add is, well, I want to know if I hit the hero. That's kind of my whole point, right? So I'm an enemy bullet. So I'm going to add an if statement that checks if I am touching the hero. So that would be, that's my ultimate goal in life, is to touch that hero, right? If I do touch the hero, the game is over. And so the thing that has to happen is much bigger than me. So I'm just going to broadcast an event. I'm going to broadcast what messages I've got so far. I've got bullet hit enemy, enemy hit hero, and I'm going to make a new one called maybe enemy bullet hit hero. That's very verbose, right? So this is when an enemy bullet hits the hero. Cool. So I'm going to broadcast that for the whole world to listen to. Everybody's going to have to respond to it, to be perfectly honest. So the game just ended. Who has to know about it? Well, other enemy bullets should know about it. So I'm the one who broadcast it, but some other clone might receive enemy bullet hit hero. If that happens, they want to stop moving. So stop other scripts in the sprite. That should be enough for this one. Who else has to listen for enemy bullet hit hero? The power-up? Not really. Power-ups don't care. Power-up will know that the game's over. He could listen. He could stop what he's doing, but I'm not that worried about it. All the other enemies, man, this game's getting complex, but that's cool. Yes, they probably should do something. Wow, look at all this code they've got. So they should probably stop moving. So when I receive enemy bullet hit the hero, I just want to do the most basic thing, which is to stop moving. So I need the stop, not stop all, but stop other scripts in the sprite. And so that'll stop moving around because you just lost the game, right?
And one thing Dave's doing here, something I tell my students all the time when I'm doing programming, is think like the computer. Try to think about everything that the computer's managing. Think about the way it's going to interpret what you're asking it to do. And Dave's got years of practice doing this, right? So what he's doing in his mind very, very quickly is thinking about each component of the game and how it's impacted by the change. The good news is that A, this is a skill that you can develop with practice, and B, it doesn't matter if you're great at it right away, because if you're not, you can just run the game and see all the stuff that didn't happen the way you wanted it to happen, and then fix it one at a time. Like he's predicting, oh, we're going to want this one to stop, and this one to stop, and this one to stop. If he didn't make these changes, the only downside is that we'd see these things continue moving after the bullet hit us, and that wouldn't be good, and so we'd fix it.
Yep. And it's easier for me to do now because it's a nice systematic time. Because honestly, I'm just working from right to left, right?
Yeah.
And so bullets. So if there's bullets in the air that are flying and the game ends, they need to also say, when I receive enemy bullet hit hero, I also want to stop other scripts in the sprite, right? And so they stop flying. The hero... now, he's probably the one that has to respond to it the most, right? So we already have a thing for if the enemy hits a hero. And so now we're going to also have if a enemy bullet hits the hero. Now we've got a slight choice to make. The fastest way to write the code is to duplicate these three and just like put them here because it'll be in both things. But a more elegant way to do it, just to kind of mention it, is to make a block for game over, right? And so what this is going to allow me to do is now I can put this code in one spot, and then I can call it from here and here. See how that worked? That's pretty clever. I like that a lot. All right. That is an enemy bullet. That is, if the enemy bullet hits the hero, everybody should respond to it except for the power-up, who we decide to skip. There's only one problem. Nobody ever fires a bullet, right? So that's okay. We'll fix that. So nobody ever fires a bullet. So what we've got to do is we've got to make enemies fire bullets. So one just quick test, if you just wanted to just try it, let's just make every single enemy fire a bullet every single step. This will be fun. So this is temporary. So I'm going to take this out later. So I'm going to make a clone of the enemy bullet. So I'm going to put it at the very, very top, just so that I can take it out later. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly make every single person fire at me every single step. And so now, that didn't work out too well. Aha! I goofed. I didn't ever set enemy firing X, enemy firing Y. So check this out. So right now the bullets all come from 0. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a sentry gun. Which is actually a pretty neat feature, by the way. It's just not the feature that I wanted. Oh man, I always hate this whenever the internet has problems.
Oh yeah, you should probably explain what to do if that ever happens for them. I think we might have once before in a previous video.
So if that ever happens to you, click on try again, which for me that time just worked. But if try again doesn't work, you can always download your file and keep it. And you can keep working, but just make sure you download the file to make sure you don't lose any of your work. All right, so I have a cool accidental feature. And that cool accidental feature is a fountain of bullets coming from the middle. The reason that it's doing that is every time an enemy takes a step, it's creating a clone of a bullet, and the bullets are all starting from this initial spot. If I wanted it to go a little better, I could have them set enemy firing X, enemy firing Y. But I think I'm gonna clean it up just a little bit more. So we don't want every single enemy being a shooter, and we don't want them shooting every single time. So we're going to kind of fix this up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this create clone a bullet. It's actually going to be kind of annoying because if I move it over, it's all coming with it. But then I can fortunately just move it right back. And so that let me get rid of that. All right, so let's decide if we are a shooter or not, and let's decide if we want to shoot. So we're going to need some variables. The first thing that we're going to need is for this sprite only, I'm going to make a variable called isShooter. All right, and I don't really need to show it, but I do want to set it at the top. So I'm going to set isShooter. And I've got to decide if I am a shooter, I'm going to set it to 1. If I'm not a shooter, I'm going to set it to 0. And I'm going to use a little randomness in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a comparison. I'm going to pick a random number, maybe like 1 to 5. And if that number is less than, so I'm going to say if that number is less than that, so I'm going to make it less than, I think what I did before, Bob, I did, if it's less than, so I'm going to need an if statement in here instead of a set. If it is, I could use an else if in here even. So I'm going to set it to either 1 or I'm going to set it to 0. So if it is less than, you could just pick a random number like 2. So it's like half the time you're a shooter, half the time you're not. Or you could base it on that round number. And so I'm going to base it on round number.
Benefit of basing it on a round number from a game perspective is obviously round is going up. And so we're going to progressively get more and more likely that the enemy will be designated by the game as a shooter.
And then it'd be nice to know if somebody's a shooter or not. And so really what I should do is I should do something to kind of affect their looks a little bit. I think what we did is we just changed their brightness. So we made them brighter by, looks like 50. And so that way you'll know if they're shooters or not. So you could run this right now. I'm going to take the duration down. And the only thing you'll see is that you'll see some enemy pop up eventually. Hopefully that's a little brighter. And so there's a, oh yeah, there he goes. So see how he's brighter? So the crab was clearly brighter there. Let's see if we get another one. Oh, yep, there's a very bright pterodactyl. So that bright pterodactyl would have been a shooter. There's a bright crab again, bright pterodactyl. And you'll see that as I get later in the game, as soon as I get into rounds 5 and higher, they're going to all be shooters. So he's a shooter. Forgot 3 bullets. But you can see that every time they're going to become more likely to be a shooter. All right, so that's the first step, is you have to be a shooter. So this code right here will determine if you are a shooter or not. Now we've got to use the shooterness. So where do we want to shoot at? We've got a lot of code in this enemy. It could really go anywhere in here. And so we're going to decide if we're going to shoot or not. So we're going to make some formula for if we're going to shoot or not. Let's go ahead and start off with a very simple formula. We'll make the formula if isShooter is 1, then we're going to shoot, right? In order to shoot, what you want to do is you want to set those X and Y's. So the firing enemy X, and you're going to set it to your current position. I did that kind of fast, but you can pause me if you need. And then, of course, we're going to do the same thing with the Y. So same thing with the Y. So variables, I'm going to set the firing enemy Y. And I'm going to set that to the Y position. And then I'm going to clone it. By the way, there's always a risk of little race conditions here, but I think it'll work out okay this time. Like, do those get set in time before the clone gets made? I think that they will. I can put this chunk of code anywhere, kind of in here. I think that I'll put it, where do I want to put it? I'll put it near the top just for fun. So I'm going to try to sneak it right in here. You want to make sure not to put it inside any other if statements. There's no real reason I picked it here. So this is the between when you obliterate and when you animate. That's not really a very good spot. Maybe I'll just do it right at the top. So they're going to move, and then they're going to decide to shoot or not. And then they're going to do other stuff. Oh, you know what? Actually, I do want to put it after obliterate because I don't think that there's any chance you should shoot when you're obliterated. It wouldn't really happen. All right, let's see this go. So right now, I should have quite a few shooters. And when a shooter does come, they'll see a different color. And then they're going to fire, I think, every single step. And so, I tried to obliterate, but I still touched them.
So you still have 1 to 5 less than a round?
I think so. So I think that I should have...
well, it'll never be less than round until...
Oh, yeah. So I've got to get at least to round 2.
So you got to get through 1 cycle of enemies, which is...
There he is.
Did we actually get through a cycle of enemies, or was I saying something wrong there? Oh, you got up to level 9.
I took the level duration down to 2.
Oh, you were flying through.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Yep.
Cool. So you can see that it worked. And it worked, but the enemy fired at me quite a lot, right? Because he fired every single step. And so he fired every single step because the only thing we're checking is shooter 1, right? And so we want to actually make that also have some additional randomness. So we're going to have to say that shooter has to be 1 and something else, right? So I have to be a shooter and I'm going to play this game again, right? So I'm going to say something has to be less than, and just for the sake of variety, I'm going to use level this time. And the thing that has to be less is going to be a random again. All right, now the question is, how often do you want to shoot? If we did 1 to 10, let's just kind of go see what 1 to 10 does. So 1 to 10 means there's a 1 in 10 chance that you're going to shoot when you are a shooter. So first off, I need to get a shooter. Maybe I should just make them all shooters, Bob. So as soon as I get a shooter, they've got a 1 in 10 chance of firing at me. And you can see that a 1 in 10 chance of firing at you is actually quite a lot of bullets. And that's because it's every step they have a 1 in 10 chance of firing. And since my level is 16 now, it's every single step. And so what we did is Bob and I played with this number, and we actually found that a pretty high number made the most sense. And so a number like 500 actually does make sense. Bob, do you want to explain why 500 is actually not a ludicrous thing?
Yeah, if you recall back to our grid, how many different points are there on our grid when we were figuring out the X and Y coordinates? Turns out that the circle, the radius that we had when we were doing the distance to the edge, I think was 300 to get to the corner. So if if an enemy's going diagonally across, they're hitting about 600 pixels. That's every little dot, but we're moving, I think it's 5 at a time?
5 or 6 at a time.
I mean, it's about 120 possible steps, maybe on a shorter, if they're going from bottom to top or immediately left to right, it might be smaller, but the reality is they're taking approximately 100 steps to get across the screen. And so if they have 100 tries at becoming in the state where they're firing, we need it to be a pretty small probability per step to make it where the overall probability is reasonable. So we did some higher level math, which is well beyond the scope of this video, and some trial and error, and that's where we came up with the number 500. We said that if it's 1 to 500 and it's less than a round, that's going to be good enough to put us in the position of being a firer.
And you can also play with it, and you can see what you like or not. So I bumped it up to 200. And I think that 200 is actually pretty good, Bob. Now, there's one small glitch that I don't like, and that's that the bullets are a certain speed, but the enemies are actually much faster than their bullets at the point of the game that I'm at. So just try to watch one closely. You'll notice that he shoots, and then he's like way faster than his own bullets. And I think the bullets should be faster than the enemy, right? That's just a personal preference, I guess. But the bullets, you can see, are at a fixed 5 speed, but the enemies just get faster and faster and faster. And so eventually, like you should always shoot faster than you run, right? So I'm gonna fix that personal preference. I'm gonna add another variable. I'm gonna add another firing enemy speed variable. So I'm gonna make a firing enemy speed variable. It's going to be global for all sprites, so it's just a communication mechanism. And right now I set the X and the Y. I'm going to also set firing enemy speed, and I'm just going to set it. It's my own personal speed, my own enemy speed. So just so the bullet, when it starts, it can be faster than whatever I am. This may not be necessary for some people, but now I want to set the bullet speed. 2 ways you could do this. You could just look at whatever it is and just multiply it, or you could save it off at the moment you're fired. I'm not really sure which I prefer, Bob. Do you have a preference? How do we do it before? Before we did not save it off. Are you okay with that, Bob?
I'm fine with that, I think.
There's a chance they could speed up or slow down mid-flight. We'll do it elegantly. I'll do it elegantly. We'll make a variable.
You're saying the enemy might speed up mid-flight?
If a dinosaur fires a bullet, it goes at a certain speed. But then if the crab fires a bullet, the dinosaur's bullet will speed up and match the crab's bullet.
Yes. So you're saying whether or not we want to have a sprite-specific enemies, a sprite-specific bullet speed.
Yeah. So this doesn't matter. This is a fine-grained detail. But at the moment I'm fired, my speed should never change. So I'm going to make a variable called enemy bullet speed that's for this particular clone only. I wish that said for this clone only, because that's how we really use them. And so we're just going to set enemy bullet speed. And I think I'm going to set it a little faster. So I'm going to use a multiplication here. I'm going to set it to whatever the enemy, the firing enemy, however fast he was, times like 1.2, which is like 20% faster. So you always shoot bullets that travel a little faster than you yourself are running. And then, of course, I've got to use this inside of here, enemy bullet speed. And then I've got to hide a whole bunch of variables because I do not need my whole screen taken over with my variables. All right, so now what will happen, so I'm going to crank up the how fast they come through again. So now when somebody fires at me, their bullets will actually come out the front successfully. All right, so yeah, so see how he's firing and his bullets kind of came out the front on there? That was good. Whoa, those pterodactyls, man, with those long wings. Those pterodactyls are the ones that get me every time. Cool. I think that we finished this sprint, but I'm just kind of playing and having fun for a little bit. Oh, yes. Oh, look at him. He's blue and blown up. Take that, dinosaur. That's cool. All right, yeah, see, so he's firing at me there, and this firing, and then there was a non-fire. Kind of lucky to get a non-fire at this late in the game. Oh, yeah. And you can make the levels go faster at whatever pace you want. Here, just for, whoa! So see how fast their bullets are going now. Just to make the game easier to see these later changes, I'm going up every 2 seconds. That's a little quick. But I think it's going pretty good. All right, let's summarize what all we learned. Did that pretty fast. I realized that only advanced people were able to keep up with me in real time. Pause the video if you want to make this feature and just kind of go through it meticulously, kind of point by point. But we're trying to try to not make the video take forever. Look at how much code we've got, Bob.
This is a beast.
All right, let's talk about some things we learned this time. All right, so we learned about communication between sprites using global variables. So you can broadcast an event. You can say, hey, this thing happened. But you can also, I don't know why I can't grab us. You can also communicate using variables. So we made firing enemy X, firing enemy Y, and firing enemy speed. And then when we created a clone of that enemy bullet, it used those variables, right? So it's an important way to communicate. We also did a lot with broadcasting and listening. If you remember back to the start of this video, whenever we did enemy bullet hit hero, everybody had to know about it, right? And so you'll notice that as we get more complex, every single sprite has to know about every single event, and it definitely adds up. We also did a thing earlier when the hero, sometimes it gets hit by a bullet, sometimes it gets hit by an enemy, but he does the same thing in either case. That making of a function or making of a block can be a good way to do that. And then we did a lot with math of being a shooter and then shooting every step. Cool. Any thoughts on things we should say here?
No, this slide summarizes it. We talked quite a bit about the probability part. It's quite common for there to be a need in a game or a project that you're developing that might go beyond your level of understanding. There's a lot of resources out there that you can use to help you learn. You can look things up. If the word probability doesn't make a lot of sense to you, you can just trial and error, try some things and see what works. You don't necessarily have to understand the complexities with everything that you do. It's always good to understand. So whenever there is a gap, maybe it makes sense to note it and then ask someone around you if you've got anybody supporting your efforts. But yeah, hopefully watching the videos that we're making and getting a little bit of follow by example is building up your confidence and being able to go out and build things on your own. We've got one video left to put a few final touches on our game.
One to go. All right. We will see you next time. Probably a short little wrap up next time. Just kind of put some polish on the game. So we'll see you then.
Happy coding.